Switch this around a little bit. We're gonna have the Two Rivers Park update first. And I think John and Sarah are gonna update us. So, John, you wanna start us off on the, Two Rivers Park update? Are you doing that, or?
Yeah, thanks. I just think this will take a couple minutes, and I thought it would be easier to just get it out of the way first. So we'll just follow along in your books. Sarah has entered in here a few of the latest, I think these are the latest drawings. Yeah, latest drawings. There's an overlook, where the rivers come together, and some renderings there of this is gonna be a pretty simple park. Just green space, small shelter, picnic tables, and the overlook. And what we really just wanted to highlight with you today, and I think you all know where it's at in the Market District. This is a site of a former manufactured gas processing plant. There's very limited use for this area. So Mid-America, which owns it, has proposed that they would do all the development costs, design and pay for construction, installation of all the improvements. And what they've approached and worked with us and the city of Des Moines about is if they build it, turnkey it to us, that we would maintain it. Basically, the basis of maintenance, snow removal, lawn care, regular maintenance, and that the city of Des Moines and Polk County would share the cost of that maintenance 50-50. We have worked with Polk County Conservation, who will do the maintenance. We estimate the cost to be about $300,000 a year. So it'll be $150 each for the city of Des Moines and Polk County. And that's really what we would be agreeing to, with a lease agreement with Mid-American to maintain this park. And Ralph's been working on the legal side to make sure we're all protected from any liabilities associated with any of that hazardous substances or waste is left there. And so the really key decision that you'll need to make, I think, is just, they had proposed doing a 25-year lease. staff, city of Des Moines, Polk County, we really think maybe do a 10-year lease with 5-year automatic renewals for as long as they need to go. I don't know as it's that big deal. I'm just always hesitant to sign on to something for 25 years. Anything,
Is this
Sarah,
a-
Ralph?
is it Polk County Park or City of Des Moines Park or hybrid or what? Whose park is it?
It's owned by Mid-American. They would want the naming rights to be in Mid-American Two Rivers Park.
Okay.
And the maintenance of the park would be done by Polk County Conservation with the cost share split 50-50 with the city of Des Moines.
Right.
But if anybody asks, it's really Polk County Conservation, right?
Yes, and we've been working with the team, and that will have Polk County Conservation as logos and identifiers throughout the park too.
Wasn't-
along with Mid-America.
Was the number, 100,000 apiece for both jurisdictions?
150.
150?
But no, we don't have to make capital improvements. Is that
Right,
correct?
Right. Capital's all be done, but so, Ralph, my biggest concern all along has been for us as far as exposure, litigation based on, some of the environmental stuff or whatever. Do we split that exposure with the city? Does the county take all of the exposure? Does Mid-Am have exposure, in this
The,
park?
the agreement has not been signed yet, but I've drafted it in a way that Mid-America would be responsible for any exposures to any of the hazardous waste or substances.
Sorry.
The one exception would be if we were negligent and our staff violated the own rules of care, but
Yeah,
Right.
we would be responsible for any violation of the environmental covenants that are in place.
Right.
But ultimately, it's Mid-America's responsibility.
Ideally, yes. Again, if we were negligent or intentionally violated a environmental covenant restriction, use restriction, then we would be liable for that.
What's the timeline on this? Timeline?
on this, well, I think Ralph's been working with the city of Des Moines to get a language that the two legal staffs feel good about. And Mid-America would like to start, I think, turning the shovel this spring. Well, I guess not too many turns of the shovel. More layering on top.
So really, our decision today is, do we want to do a 25-year lease or a 10-year with a 5-year?
I think there's.
Is that right?
There's one other outstanding issue I should have put on there, just thought of it, Ralph, because you're here. About, they want to have, if there's any disagreement, that it would be decided by jury versus a judge.
They'd want arbitration rather than, they're asking that Polk County waive its right to a jury trial if there were any legal disputes.
What do you think about that?
Uh,
That's up to you. I don't know.
I can argue both ways, but that's something that you don't normally, we don't normally do, but I can also see their position in this particular circumstance. Something I would be more comfortable discussing with you privately.
Gotcha.
So, the only, and I don't want to get in the weeds too much on this, Ralph, but as we move ahead and you're drafting, or we're working on drafting the agreement, you talked about if we're negligent and what have you. So, and I'm not an expert on this, matter of fact, I'm far from it, but I would assume that when you disturb that ground that is allegedly has environmental issues, that could maybe cause some problems then by moving dirt. Because if we move dirt in the future, say, or the county conservation went down and started trenching or something like that, we couldn't do that. I realize we couldn't do that, but they're already gonna do it just to build this stuff. You can't build this stuff without disturbing the ground down there.
They are making some improvements, and they are also bringing in a significant amount of topsoil that Rich could probably address the exact quantity.
Yeah, I don't have exact quantity, Rich Leopold, Polk County Conservation, but it's good to be concerned, but you're right. They have a very tight understanding with the Department of Natural Resources and the Environmental Protection Agency as to the collection procedures, the maintenance procedures, and everything else. And Mid-American has made very clear, this is our footprint, this is our building, this is our collection system, and we got this. As far as most of the land, which is park land, it was alluded to, they're going to be building up a lot of land. They're bringing in an incredible amount of earth to make this happen and have an overlook and everything. So that is beside the footprint that they'll need to do the collection for the toxics.
So the issue again is that we want 25 years or we want 10 years with five-year renewals. I'll go along with staff recommendation on that. I mean, I'm not gonna split hairs on that.
Just looking through the contract language, you may have some more, Ralph. That's one I spotted that I know that we'd changed. Otherwise, they accepted most of our changes that we recommended to the language in the
It's really up to the board's pleasure.
I like 10.5.5.
Matt, you prefer any, you care,
I don't, I really don't. I think it's a great opportunity. It sounds like a win-win.
or? I do too.
But whatever staff recommends on that would be fine. I think
You
it's gonna
prefer?
be a terrific asset for the downtown area.
I do too.
and
Market Street will make a
District.
huge difference down
Yeah,
there for that park.
Absolutely.
So I commend the conservation in City of Des Moines for taking it on, and
Yep,
I think it'll be a great asset. So,
absolutely.
I think, no illusions here, the 150 cost is probably gonna go up over time,
right.
but I think we made it pretty clear with Mid-American,
As
we're
long
not
as the
doing any
city
capital
is,
improvements. Resurfacing parking lots is all their responsibility.
Right.
We would just make sure it's mowed and shoveled and.
Do we have the
basic
city on the
maintenance.
hook here, Ralph?
We're in,
Hot pursuit?
we have to have a separate agreement with the city of Des Moines. The most recent draft, I've sent on to the county administrator. There's some business decisions that the board will have to make in terms of that agreement that aren't flushed out yet, but.
Okay. I'm confident we'll get there.
I mainly want to put this on the agenda today just so we can update you all.
No,
see
I'm
what-
glad we
See what
did.
questions to have, so as we
Yeah.
move forward, we'll come back to you with more on this. But
That's good. Okay, so you get you know where we're heading, so you've got somewhere to go. Perfect. All right, thank you for that update. Let's move into Sleepy Hollow Sports Park.
So yeah, and just a little color commentary on top of that is Mid-American has been very accommodating. So we've been in their design meetings and their engineering meetings. They've allowed us to bring a lot of our senior staff into the process. So they have been very accommodating for that. The city of Des Moines, we've been talking with them about security and making sure that with houseless populations, or it's right off Court Avenue there and stuff like that, and the police station's right there. And they've actually got an exercise facility that's right there too, the Des Moines Police Department. So they have assured us that they got security on that. So it has been going really well. Thank you for the opportunity today to give you an update on Sleepy Hollow Sports Park and everything going on. Got quite a few of our board members today. We've got Jill Altringer, Pam Mullenhauer, Greg Lewis, and our newest, Paula Feltner is here. So we're only missing one. So it's great to see the support from the Conservation Board that's here. Also got a number of staff today, so you don't have to listen to me. It'll be Jeff Condon, who is our Leisure Services manager, but I would just say Sleepy Hollow guru. We've got Cade Jones, there he is, working is going to be our operations manager, construction and maintenance operations background. We have Cammie Rankin, our deputy director. We have Natalie McFarlane, our accountant, and Jessica Lown, our community outreach supervisor. So today it'll be mostly Jeff talking, and then Jessica is going to do a little bit. What we want to do is give you an update on what's happening out there as far as the development itself, the feasibility study, and then I'm going to end with some of the boring stuff. I'll go a little bit into that spreadsheet that you have in front of you there and just talk at a very high level the financial picture that we're putting together for this. And then, of course, be open to any questions. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff, and you can take it from here.
Thank you, Rich. Hi, my name is Jeff Condon, Leisure Services Manager for Polk County Conservation. I come to the conservation Iowa by way of New York, where I've worked in the ski industry for about 30 years. It's hard to believe. From the Adirondacks, I worked at a ski mountain there. I had a ski shop, ski school. and everything that goes along with that. Also with me today is Kay Jones, as Rich mentioned. He's grew up at Sleepy Hollow, working there, and went on to get a formal education in the ski industry, which is pretty rare, as well as he's a master electrician, and he's worked in Colorado and California at other resorts. We're very lucky to have Cade with us. I can't stress that enough. So I read about the purchase of Sleepy Hollow in the Register well before they were ready to bring somebody on, but I reached out because this kind of opportunity is something I've always been interested in the ski industry. Is most areas are kind of on an island and are hard. Let's see, how do I? Oh, on the keyboard. There we go. And so most ski areas are out kind of on an island, right? They're hard to get to, they're very expensive, they're exclusive, I would say, of a large portion of our population. And when I read about this purchase, and it's on the east side of town, it was very exciting to me to be able to have the opportunity to touch so many people that normally would not get this kind of opportunity in skiing, snowboarding, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. Is a lifelong sport, and if people get that opportunity and they can do it and they can afford it, that to me was what was most exciting about the county purchasing this, is to give that opportunity to people. And as you can see here, we have Cade's son, young snowboarder, already going down Snowflex, which we'll get to. There we go. So our areas of emphasis, we are a year-round facility. We're going to focus on, we'd like to also, besides the skiing, it's a big area, bring back cross-country skiing. We've had East High School coach out there already to walk the grounds. We have a lot of festivals and events, which I'm sure everybody's aware of, with the Renaissance Festival and Spooky Hollow, but not just that, or the Scream Park. We've had commercials already filmed out there. I think that's an excellent opportunity to have filming and use it as a shoot, because it is such a cool area, the Renaissance area. And of course, our core, the nature and conservation, will have, it's quite even though it's right in the city, it's really an amazing spot to experience a lot of nature. And we're doing a lot of restoration efforts as well. So we've broken this up into phases, which we are still in phase 1. I think we've done quite a bit in just over a year. We've installed the largest snowflex hill in the world for tubing, which is pretty cool. If you drive by, you can see it on Dean Avenue. It's huge. I've installed a lift to go along with that, which you can just stand on and go up. We took out the old antiquated lifts that were dangerous and required a lot of manpower to operate. And so those are up now and will be running here in the spring. We'll get to that. We're also working on future designs, and we've started a feasibility study for our fundraising campaign. And so that is phase 1, and phase 2 will be moving a full-fledged fundraising campaign, because this will be an expensive endeavor. I'm sorry. And in phase 1, 2 will be, as I mentioned, will be opening in the spring with the Snowflex Hill. So we'll get into that here. You can see some of the hill prep in these pictures. We had a crew over from England, which is where Snowflex comes from. They installed it this summer, and along with the lift. We've expanded the pond, which is really exciting. That's kind of the heartbeat of the whole facility, the water. We need the water to make snow, but we also, for Snowflex, recycle the water that we use. We take the water from 4 Mile Creek, funnel that into the pond, which is now over 3 million gallons, and then put that up on the hill, because the hill surface is lubricated so people can slide down more easily, and then we recollect that water and then put it back up on the hill. So it's a pretty cool system. And we will be open for nights with our must-go lighting that's going up shortly, as well as we'll have speakers that aren't too loud on there for people's enjoyment. And at this point, I'd like to invite Jessica Lown up to discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. As Rich said, I'm Jessica Lown, Community Outreach Supervisor in Wall. Jeff and Kate are working really hard on the infrastructure stuff and making sure everything is ready from an operational standpoint. I am working with some of our other staff and of course them to get ready for opening day. As you can imagine, there's a lot of logistics involved. We are targeting a Memorial Day grand opening weekend for the public. Very exciting to have some nice warm weather towards the end of the school year, so more families will be open and available, to come out and enjoy the new Snowflex Hill. We'll have some temporary concessions there as well, and then on into the summer, we'll be hosting State Fair camping. As I know you've seen happen before this, but this year it will be entirely our operation. We're getting ready to send out letters to those State Fair campers and get them signed up for the next year, so excited about that. And of course, we'll continue to do our Renaissance Fair and Spooky Hollow concessions with our partner, the Flats, who have contracted with us to do that. So exciting work moving towards that opening day, grand opening for the public of Memorial Day weekend. So in order to get there, we're doing a lot of work to prepare for business. There's some things happening in the background. We are working on our point of sale system so folks can get online and purchase their tickets and have access to the lift online ahead of time, get all of those the Snowflex Hill sessions filled up and booked early. We're working with the county IT to make sure that we have IT support out there so that we can have point of sale, sell those candy bars, Coca-Colas, things like that, and get folks up on the hill with the internet support in order to have point of sale. Working with our staff to get staff hired for the season. We have a new ranger coming on board, and he'll be working on safety protocols so that we have different policies and procedures in place to make sure that our customers, the citizens of Polk County, are protected and safe while they're there, and we have a plan in place in the event of something unfortunate. We're also working on some real basic things like signage and maps so that when people arrive, they know where to go. Where do I go to pick up my tube? How do I get up to the hill? That sort of thing. So a lot of infrastructure, a lot of other things that are happening in and around to get ready for that exciting Memorial Day weekend opening. And last but certainly not least, we've been doing some background work to make sure that we are listening to our public and speaking to them in a way that is effective. We did some focus groups with our audience to find out what they're excited about, what they're concerned about, and how we can allay those concerns. And we use that information to do some internal workshops, really identify our personality and create a new brand, which is what you're seeing there. And this brand is really important because it will help us market to the public and ultimately bring in those ticket purchasers and those folks who are gonna come and use the hill. And we're very excited about it. We have all of that done and complete, and we're using that raw material, the logos, the color palette, the font, the voice, all of that to get our website up and running. So again, when it comes time, people can get online and purchase those tickets and come and join us on the Snowflex Hill on Memorial Day weekend when we open. So that's what we're doing to prepare for business.
Got just a quick question, Jessica. So,
Yes, sir.
Not a huge issue, but I'm curious about, I think the last time I was out there, we talked about a spring break opening. Now we're at Memorial Day.
Yes, and that was a delay that we thought through very carefully. We looked at a lot of different things. First of all, weather. And try not to make emotional decisions. We got online and we pulled historical weathers. What's the temp gonna be like? What's the precipitation, the wind, that sort of thing. And really, ultimately, we thought that moving it to Memorial Day weekend would be the best option for a number of reasons. One is sheerly optics. We don't wanna open or have to delay the open because it's freezing cold outside. And nobody wants to come out on the hill on our grand opening weekend. I mean, it's a reality. We need this to be a positive and exciting opening day. The weather's likely gonna be much better on Memorial Day, and we felt really confident about that. I think the other option, and Rich and or Jeff can weigh in on this, but in the conversations I was exposed to, hiring seasonal staff, we think that we're gonna have a lot better opportunity to hire seasonal staff later. Probably lots of college kids, high school students who are looking for that, temporary work, and we think it's gonna be a lot easier to hire those staff and get up and running with a little bit of a later start.
Might be kind of difficult if people don't want to come out in the cold and it's a winter sports park, but I get you. Okay. The next thing is, we talk about State Fair parking. We've been talking about that for quite some time, and I don't live far from there, so I'm by there quite a bit, but as you know, Rick and Mary, they packed them in there. I mean, it's a good revenue generator and all that. But it wasn't ideal the way it was set up with the, you know, with the campers just far apart, and they didn't have a lot of infrastructure in place for, I don't know, they might have had electrical hookups, I'm not sure what all they had, Cade, you would know. But, and then also the restroom facilities and the bathing and the showering and the things like that. It wasn't the best setup. So I think the original plan was to improve that, actually have regular pads. You'd lose a lot of spaces, but are we still on that same track?
That was a good synopsis of where we're at. So yes and no. We're going to pack them in there because that is a good cash cow, and we have a lot of people that want to make sure that we continue. And so we are going to continue, but in a different way than Rick and Mary are. So yes, we're looking at our utilities. You know, it helps to have a master electrician on staff. So how we do our utilities, how we look at water distribution and the shower house and all that kind. Most people have self-contained units, but that needs to be talked about. So we're going to continue, but in a less, and then the people that have been there can get grandfathered in, although it's just for them. Like in the state fair campground, they can give it to their kids or sell it to a friend or whatever. That's not going to be here, as they have it for as long as they have it, but that's it. Because we believe that through attrition over time, there's going to be more and more publicly accessible places, which as a tax-supported agency, we need to go to. The other aspect I'm going to just touch on is we're still looking at viable year-round camping opportunities. So we may take 10 or 20 of those sites and turn them into year-round sites and then hope to expand in the future. We're also looking at some targeted acquisitions perhaps in that area, maybe across on the north side of Dean right there, that we might be able to expand some of our camping footprint.
Okay.
All right, well, moving into the future, let's see if I can remember what button I'm supposed to push. So a big part of what we've done is evaluate our infrastructure. As you can see, there are a few pictures here. That's the big red thing is the chairlift. And well, most of the center is around the chair and the snowmaking. So we've, over the last year and a half, run into a lot of issues with the current infrastructure, the chair being one of them, and snowmaking. Neither are usable. The chair is not safe. It's a company that doesn't exist anymore. So getting parts for that is near impossible. So going into a big part of phase 2 is we're looking at replacing the snowmaking system completely. The antiquated system that is there is, we could get quite deep into how it operates. It's kind of amazing that it did operate, but we're looking at taking from staff from 8 to 12 people to make snow down to 1 to 2. Maybe 3 at the very most, and being able to make snow in conditions that are 7 to 8 degrees warmer. We'd be able to make snow today. So that 7 or 8 degrees can be the difference between being open or closed. So it's much more efficient. We'll use a lot less water than we do now, but we'll be able to make more. And then, as I mentioned, the chairlift on there, and as you can see the numbers for these, the chair would be a state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line chair, which would be nice to have. And then Snowflex Bunny Hill, this is a big vision of ours, so we have the Snowflex Tubing Hill, which is up there now. We want to make a much smaller version of that just for learning to ski year-round, skiing and snowboarding, to have, anybody, children mostly, that could come out there and learn, have that opportunity to get them on the hill and learn, which I think would be just tremendous. So as I mentioned, we've run into some issues. The lodge is another big one. I've had all sorts of issues with the mold. It's not really accessible for a lot of people. Can't use the kitchen. Leaky pipes. The geothermal heating cooling system, which is what we rely on, is problematic. So that's a big part of what we'll be looking to replace, was along with the chair and the snowmaking and those 3 big things. So this is what we're looking at. We're coming into, we talked about the feasibility study, which will then lead into our fundraising campaign, and this is what we're looking to cover with those things. We're looking at the new lodge, the infrastructure, so parking as well. pulling off into Dean it can be really difficult. It's a real quick stop, so we want to look at better ways to solve that, and have parking it's kind of the number one issue there, is there's just not a lot of it for the lodge, and we need to address that. We have some complications because much of our property's in a floodplain, so we have to figure all that out. And one of the main issues I find in the ski industry is for newcomers, which is what a lot of our clientele will be. We're a feeder hill. People come here, learn, and hopefully go on to other places. They're very intimidating for new skiers to come in, or snowboarders. They don't know where to go, or especially if you go to our lodge now, you don't know which door to even go in. So making it a very user-friendly, very easy experience. I think it's the service industry. That's kind of the key for us, is to provide top-notch service. We can put all the world-class facilities up on the hill, but if people can't freely and comfortably get to those, then it's really going to be doing a disservice to what we're trying to do. So the parking is part of that. We're also on the trail, the Gailey Wilson Trail, so attracting those people that use that trail, the cyclists, to our new lodge, which will have a brew pub in it, I think is a huge advantage to us, especially being part of having us be a four-season facility. This is a rendition that's been done of what a lodge could look like. Now, this is based on the current lodge, so this wouldn't be exactly what it was, but they do hit a lot of marks here. We have the nice deck overlooking the ski hill. People can, parents and grandparents can watch their kids learn to ski. It's an example of what it could look like. I think they definitely hit some of the mark, but it wouldn't be exactly like that.
Let me pose a question to you, if I might.
Yes.
With respect to the snowmaking equipment, and I guess indirectly the lodge too, the temperatures around here this winter have been mid-30s, lower 40s. Could you maintain an operation at those kind of temperatures?
You can. So you can make snow, right around freezing, even a little higher than that, with a system like this. And so you put in additives into the snow, which actually cool it down about 10 degrees. And then with the packing of the snow, like you could see us up at Boone, where they still have snow, they make it when they can, especially at night when it's colder. The colder it is, the more you can make, of course. But you can pack it down, and with those additives, stay open longer. You might lose some where you have thin cover, but you could weather this and stay open.
All right, thanks.
But that's a good question. So that then takes me back to turn this over to Rich, where we get into the financials. And I'll step aside.
I'm not going to go too deep into this because this kind of a spreadsheet is like chewing glass, right? There's a lot of details here. But I wanted to give you some general overview and hopefully give you the idea, the impression that we have a business plan, we know what we're doing, we know where we're going, and some of the order of magnitude. So just hitting on a few highlights. You see salaries, you see the jump. Well, this year, just to let you know, we were allocated more than we're going to use because we thought we were going to be opening a lot sooner. So you've actually got probably $250,000, $300,000 that's going to come back this year that we're not going to use because of our later opening. Going into next year and subsequent years, you'll see quite a jump. Some of that is actual and some of it is potential. What I mean by that is we have a staffing plan going into this with what we believe we need, and we're acting conservatively, but we're asking for additional capacity if we need it. So there's actually about $400,000 padding, if you will, on that. And we will come back, we'll work with John and Sarah and you all if we need that extra 400,000. Otherwise, that's going to be 400 less going through. But we have to have it authorized at the beginning because we need position IDs and stuff like that. If we use that, that's a good thing because that means we're really busy and there's money going through the cash register. Operations, pretty self-explanatory. General fund capitals, so y'all helped with the acquisition. We split it 50-50 with $1.75 million. We are asking for we got this year of the $800,000, we used that for a capital for the lights and the audio, pretty much is what that went for. Next year on the decision package, we're asking for the 875. That's basically two things. That's the groomer that we need to get for grooming the hill. You can have snow on the snow flex, but we need a groomer to be able to shape that snow. And the ski shop. And the ski shop, we don't need until a year after that, but a lot of this stuff is branded and it takes forever to get. So we actually have to start planning inventory and ordering inventory a full year in advance. Revenues, so you'll see some of the projections there. I believe that those are very conservative, and that's cumulative. That's everything. So that's the State Fair, Renaissance Fair, Scream Parks, other events, all of that put together. But like I said, I do think that that's a pretty conservative number. You have net profit and loss. If you look at the bottom, so this is up to 27, 28, you'll see that total is a little less than 3.5. So we know that this is an enterprise account, and the money that y'all are giving to us, trusting us with, is money that's going to pay back. We think the total financial impact to the county going into this business model is about $3.5 million. I'll get to a little later about the repayment of that, but we were trying to gauge that. Last time we talked with John and Sarah, we didn't have a very good beat on that number. I think this is a much better number now. Bond capitals, so it gets brought up. Are we using our bond? We are. So we use the 1.75 million already, and then you'll see we've got another 2.75 that we put into it. So the snowflex, the conveyors, the pond, the earthwork, everything that's been done out there thus far, we've put our bond money in. So front to back.
Hold on.
Sure.
Where do we show that?
That's the next to last column where it says bond capitals.
And you're saying you've already used that money for the flex thing?
Yes. So we've put $4.5 million front to back of bond money into this. Acquisition, the snowflex, the conveyor, the pond, earthwork, and everything around that. And then that last $250,000 is actually what we're doing with Funding Solutions. That pays for the feasibility study and the fundraising campaign. What we did with Easter Lake was we actually put $400,000 into that, the fundraising, and we raised $8.6 million. So we have the same fundraiser, and going into this feasibility study, you see that last column, fundraising capitals, we're estimating about a $15 million front to back for the lodge and the snowmaking and everything else. Our fundraiser professional is confident in that. We're reaching out and have feasibility co-chairs, some big names in the community that are looking close to signing on. If we weren't for some reason able to squeeze that number out of a feasibility study, we would adjust. So we would think about, how to do things a little differently, or if we need more bond capacity or what that looks like. But right now, I really think that that 15 million is attainable and that we're going to be able to do that just within the community. So, repayment. When do I get my money back? 10 to 15 years. So this, we still have to work with Deb Anderson and John and Sarah on what this looks like here. But what we're proposing is that as we open and as we start making the money, anything over $100,000 is a 50-50 split. 50% of that goes to paying back the county for all the money that has been invested into this place. 50% goes into a capital fund that we use for replacement or getting new amenities or stuff like that. Anything over 500,000 is a 75-25 split. You're the 75, we're the 25. That way, I believe we'll have enough resources for any capital upgrades or repairs or new amenities that need to be made, and yet we can stay pretty aggressive on the repayment. Now, this is going to be a while, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, so we can adjust, and this is the first time we ever put this down on paper. But I believe by our projections that that's pretty solid.
And this is strictly money going back into Sleepy Hollow, not into other functions of the Polk County Conservation Board. Is that
Right, right. This is all Sleepy Hollow. Yep. So with that, that's what we have today, is just an update on some of the business planning, some of the feasibility study. I think you can see we've got some fantastic professionals that are working on this that we're so lucky to have in Des Moines, Iowa, in the ski industry. We've got our board well represented and behind us, watching us the whole time. And hopefully, you feel the assurance that this is being done and done well.
The previous owners, how
Yes.
much longer do they get to run the show out there for the
Well-
Renaissance and?
Good question, and that's Rick and Mary Flat, is they're already done, kind of. So the state fair is now ours. Last year, we were 50-50. This year, we're state fair. We still make contract for them for shuttles. I also have conversations going on with the state fair itself to see if they're interested in some sort of shuttle arrangement too. Try DART. DART's complicated. You're in the middle of that. That's not going to work. But we either do it ourselves or through Rick and Mary. Going into Renaissance Fair and the Scream Park, they have people they want to take over those amenities. We advise them the best thing to do is then form an LLC, bid, get it, train those new people, and then hand it off. So we created an RFP proposal that they came in on. They formed an LLC, Rick and Mary did, with a couple of other folks that have been working there forever. They're going through training while this LLC is in operation. And then we have a 1 year, with a 1 year possible extension. And the thought process is after a year, they should know how to do what needs to be done. Rick and Mary are going to start to fade in the background, and then they'll be taking it over. At the end of 2 years, we'll be doing another RFP, and hopefully they're well positioned to keep that going.
So you're not gonna do any of that?
No,
Those two things?
we get a cut. We get 15%, I think it is. So I think it's 12% for the spring fair. 15 for Halloween, okay. So, and that's gross. We get a percentage right off the top. So that'll add to our capacity. And then they do everything over there as far as, the buildings, the maintenance, utilities, all of that, so.
Okay. So, nothing's happening out there now, other than working, getting it ready.
Although, and Jeff brought this up this morning, anytime you want a VIP tour, we could set up a Friday tour, or any individual that wants to reach out, we can make that happen, because that Snowflex is up, and it's amazing.
Yeah, but can we go down the hill?
Can't go down the hill except for when it's kind of snowy, frosty out. We've had a few people down the hill, a few construction workers and that took off down the hill. We have some video. But you can't do that yet until the spring. I think that probably after spring break-ish, we're going to be doing soft openings. So we might have some VIP events or church group or something like that we're able to bring out there. The big part of opening up Memorial Day too is the staffing model. So we don't want to train and staff a whole bunch of people in the middle of March and then have to close for 2 weeks and then bring them back or whatever it is because of weather. So we have the staff that we have right now, but we won't have full staffing with a complete service event until that Memorial Day weekend.
So, let's see, I gotta go back to my notes here. I had a question on something.
And actually, I know Jessica would remind me, a week before Memorial Day is actually the VIP ribbon cutting. Yes, friends and family.
The safety protocol, the new Ranger, is that in our budget?
The safety protocol,
For the new Ranger out there?
Yep, we got it.
You got it, okay.
We delayed in hiring, that's part of the cost savings you have. We actually had them coming on now, right? First part of January?
What's he gonna be doing? Just hanging out there, or?
Well, he's going to be helping create the safety plan for Sleepy Hollow, but then we also have him located so he can help with 4 Mile Greenway, where we've had some challenges, Lordson Skate Park, places like that.
So, the building where you sell food and all that, it's no good?
We're gonna repair it. So we went, and actually Supervisor Hawkinsmith, you kind of lit a fire a couple of months ago that I started this conversation. We brought in our construction and maintenance operations folks, and we need to do that for opening the Snowflex. So we've got, $50,000, $60,000 in repairs that we're gonna pay for with our bond money. And we're gonna redo the concessions as is, the bathrooms, painting, ceilings, carpeting, signage, parking. We're gonna do what we need to do to open it up and make it look professional. Now, that's not done, but it's gonna look a lot better than it does right now.
yeah, my point was, I'm hoping that you do something just so they can get hot cocoa or
Yep,
buy a hot dog or whatever, if you gotta bring a food truck, whatever.
yep.
If it's not safe, then you don't open the building, but as long as you have something so they could buy it,
Right.
whatever. So you're doing that.
We're doing that, yeah. We're figuring out how to have a successful concession with the limited utility that we have right now.
So if you're gonna spend the money on that building, then I take it you're gonna keep the building.
Yeah, no, the building, it likely isn't gonna be able to, it would be cheaper to tear it down and start new than to rehab that building. There's no ADA accessibility, there's no elevator, the flow, the traffic flow, the event space, the bathrooms, everything in that building is a challenge. And like Jeff was pointing out, we've already had black mold problems.
So, that's kinda what I thought, so why are you spending money on it?
Well, because we need it for the next 2 years. It's gonna take at least 2 years to raise the money, design and engineer, and then build. So it's investing whatever, $40,000, $50,000 to get it opened up right now. We'll be making decent money that'll offset that, so, but we can't open it as is. We need to put some money into it just to make it functional and a good experience. Jeff's told me many times, if people come and they don't have a good experience, they're not coming back. So we're gonna make sure that it's a good experience for people coming out.
Rich has the, and I know some of these things were unmanageable, but, when we first started having this discussion, when Rick and Mary first wanted to sell the place, and, I was involved in the discussions with you and others, Pleasant Hill, Des Moines, others, we ended up picking up, and I'm glad that we did, and I think it's a good project, but during the bond referendum, and I know that we talked a lot about Sleepy Hollow as being a huge component to that. But did we know at that time we were gonna have to raise $15 million privately?
I don't think we knew the order of magnitude of that. So a few things we found out, and, Rick and Mary ran their operation, did what they did, and a lot of that equipment was old and faulty, and we knew that going in. We knew a lot of this stuff was not up to snuff. And then we had a worldwide pandemic on top of that. So the stuff sat there for 3, 4, 5 years now, unused. And like Jeff said, the company that made the lift, they don't even exist anymore, so you can't even buy parts for it anymore. We did not know that we would have to replace the entire lift. The snowmaking operation, and some of that was actually taking into mind the full-time equivalent FTEs that we were gonna need. And the system that they had, you had to have a dozen people out there manually taking those wheeled snowmakers across the hillside in the middle of the night to make snow. So we decided for FTE efficiency that a better snowmaker that can make snow at a higher temperature and be able to do it all computerized was gonna be worth the money at the front end to save all the FTE money on the back end. The lodge, so we started looking at the existing operation, and everybody's got a great story about Sleepy Hollow. I was out there with my kids, my grandkids, when I was a kid, whatever it is. But we started looking at the potentials and what other resorts, like ski places like this are doing. We should have a brew pub out there. We should have that terrace cafe where people can hang out and have hot chocolate and a pretzel and stuff like that and watch their kid. So some of it was that the old was all broken up, and some of it was the new is gonna be so much better, that we headed in that direction. That brew pub, by the way, that we'll set up will be a third-party concession. We're not gonna do that ourselves. We'll have another third party come in and do that and get a cut.
And you're confident, and the consultant's confident that we could raise the 15 million? If we extended the full operation deadline, how long? Because that's gonna be difficult. I'm gonna hear about this a lot,
Yeah.
probably in my district, about, I think the original timeline that we had versus what we're proposing now.
Yeah. And to start that out, I do believe that conversations are gonna change once we get that Snowflex open. Once people can get out there and have some type of experience, I think it's gonna mellow a little bit. With the feasibility study, it's the winter of 26-27 when we anticipate, if everything goes well, full operations. If something doesn't go well, so we're doing this feasibility study, that will actually give us some results by June. Okay, so in June, we're gonna have a much better picture on if they say, yeah, 15, don't worry about it. or, you're only gonna get 5, or shoot for 10, or whatever it is. So if we need to adjust, we'll be adjusting by June on what type of amenities or lodge or whatever we're gonna build. Now, that said, Easter Lake, we just did that, and we aimed at 8.1 million. We hit 8.6. So with proper leadership, Rick Juergens and Bob Myers were a key to that, but we have the same fundraiser, Ellen Nelson, and she keeps telling us this is doable, we can do this.
Yeah, and I'll get direction from Conservation Board members and my representative on the board. But I personally am not interested in scaling things back. I know, I'm not sure exactly where all of the bond proceeds that you have are programmed for, but I'd be pushing my representative hard at that time about completing this thing in a timely manner and making sure we have everything we told the taxpayers that we were gonna have out there upon completion, and trying to move it ahead quickly as possible.
And point made with the bond. I wanted to show that we've invested a lot of bond money into this already, but we do have continuing bond monies. And if that feasibility study comes out, or if some of our fundraising efforts are short, we have the ability as a backstop to use the bond. We'd rather not, but we could if we needed to.
Okay.
And if that happened, then we just put that into the repayment schedule too. But we do have a backstop.
All right, thanks.
Rich, on the fundraising side of it, do you see, where do you see the funders coming from? The corporate community, foundations, individuals? Where do you see that?
All of the above.
All the above.
And some of it is things that we can predict and we know are going to happen. So thus far, we're hitting some of our traditional funders. The business community, we've had some preliminary discussions. They're excited about this because, as you know, because you've done a lot of it, Des Moines, Polk County is an incredible area for amenities. And that if you're doing workforce development or workforce retention, you have to have a place people want to live, and then they'll move there and then get a job. The business community, and I'm talking about, Principal and Athene and some of the other big players in town, have said, we don't have anything like this. And especially in the winter in Polk County, there's not a lot going on. So they looked at some of these preliminary plans and saying, that is perfect, that is key. That's front page of a recruitment folder right there if we're doing stuff like that. So I do think the business community is going to be big and stepping up. I do think there are granting programs that we're going to be looking at. When we did Easter Lake and the world fell apart and all of a sudden there's, Destination Iowa money and stuff like that, we went and got some of that from the governor's office. So we'll be opportunity based, but I think we'll have a solid plan in place too for that fundraising.
Is there any more Destination Iowa money?
It's drying up. There's little pots of money here and there. We're still sniffing around actually for a Brent and Slough acquisition with some partners, but most of that is gone. But there's always what's next. You can't foresee, but you always know that there are different pots of money, whether on a state or federal level, that open up for these type of amenities. So.
But fully build out your operations plan or business plan shows that this thing cash flows as these amenities are added to provide these recreational dollars that are going to be spent in our community, that this will cash flow.
Yes, and in fact, I think these numbers are very conservative.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of analogous experience. Nobody's ever done this in Polk County. But we do have Mount Crescent over in Pottawatomie County that the Pottawatomie County Conservation runs, and the Board of Supervisors bought it. And they're a little different operation. They just threw a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of people, but their success blew up. They had just tremendous outpouring from Omaha for season tickets and things like that.
What is it?
Mount Crescent over in Pottawatomie County. So it's a very similar type situation to what we're in, but with a far different approach. They hired 120?
Private sector?
140, no. It's a county, it's Pot County. And they hired 140 people to run that place. Now, not all full-time, but that's a lot of people. We're having a much more modest approach to our staffing, and I think doing things more high-tech than they are over there, but they have been incredibly successful.
And do they do tubing too? No? Just ski and snowboarding? Okay.
How many tickets did they pre-sell last year? Season passes, so these are people getting online in Omaha and buying season passes to Mount Crescent across the river. $300,000. So I do think that some of these numbers are going to be conservative.
Sweet.
Yes.
That's great.
I think what causes the most consternation here is what Tom raised, and we never envisioned this when this was sold to us 2.5 years ago. This is opening 2 or 3 years later than we thought, which is a long wait.
Yeah.
And it seems to me the primary reason for that is the whole fundraising component you've added to it that wasn't part of, or very little, if at all, part of those discussions 2.5 years ago. And it seems to me we're waiting those extra couple years for this new element of $15 million fundraising. Is there a point where you become confident enough? How much do you have to raise before you get confident you're going to get the final number so that this doesn't open in 27, 28? At a minimum, it opens in 26, 27. Because I don't know how many, I've never built a ski lift or a ski park before. But when you start with the hill already set up and all the basic infrastructure, I know you got to add some infrastructure there, to take 6 years from concept to finish is a bit unreasonable in my mind. So I'm looking for some kind of number or commitment, or what number do you need to hit fundraising-wise to, at a minimum, open this thing in 26, 27? Is
Sure.
it possible it could open in 25, 26?
That would be a challenge. And, you know, a part of this story here too is that so yes, original intent, we go in, eyes wide open, we know what the equipment looks like in this, and we thought we might be able to do the whole thing. And then we looked at what a campground was gonna cost, and it's outrageously expensive, can't do that. We looked at that building, it's like, what happens, but how much lipstick do you wanna put on that pig? So we started thinking about, what is this actually gonna be functionally? So what is a ski shop? What is the lodge? What is the event spaces? So that was some of the thought processes that led to the delay on that. And then there was the ski equipment. So it was shot. It was all, the companies don't even exist anymore, so we can't do that anymore. We knew, though, that there were expectations to get this thing open, get something moving, which is why we went in the direction of the Snowflex. A year-round amenity, and as we know with the climate shifting, we're getting, less and less winter. So the Snowflex made a lot of sense that way. We looked at the fiscal modeling of what's been done in other places in the United States that have done Snowflex, and it looked really good. And we thought we could get cash flowing a lot quicker by doing this and then phasing out the second phase with the snow operations. So those were the deliberations that we made along the way. It is frustratingly slow, but to get it right, to do it right and sustainably, I think we've made good decisions along the path.
Well, it's certainly more grandiose than you originally proposed, and that I'm all about saying this is great. You want to make it as good as we can. This is what attracts the funders. But back to my question. I mean, you talked a little bit in your response to Tom about the backstop here is the bond.
Sure.
Right? At what point do you become comfortable that, okay, we have the backstop if we have to use it, so is there a dollar figure? Is there a success rate on the fundraising so you can start moving this timeline up?
Sure.
Knowing you do have the backstop, but the fundraising is positive enough that you don't think you're going to use it.
And another element might be further phasing. So what's the most important? So that feasibility study will give us a good idea about the numbers. If we can expect 5, 10, 15, or whatever it is. Every indication so far is 15 is reasonable. Let's say the feasibility study comes back and says you're going to work your tail off and maybe get 7. Then we have to adjust our expectations and prioritize. So then we start thinking, okay, we're going to infuse a couple more million of bond money into this, and we're going to get the snowmaking equipment and the second lift put in. Bunny Hill can wait. We'll fix the lodge up a little bit more. you know, we can make those decisions once we have better
That would actually
information.
accelerate the timeline.
What's that?
That would actually accelerate the timeline, because you wouldn't be holding back on fundraising. You'd know you're gonna use the bond money, so let's just get it in and get it done.
Yes, although when you're fundraising, you want to have the high-interest items out front. So we have to think about what we want to spend money, bond money on. In an ideal situation, you spend that on the less highly visible stuff, because the other stuff is going to be, you know, the Enron Lodge or
Sexy
whatever
stuff,
it
yeah.
is, right? The sponsorable items and stuff like that. So I think we're going to have enough information through the feasibility study to accurately depict the future timeline. Everything right now is a go, and everything we're hearing right now is a go as far as putting this feasibility study together. But we should, by June, have better information on making those decisions. If we have to phase it, if we have to infuse more bond money. A big part of this discussion, too, is the board sitting out here. And so they ultimately are in charge of this bond money too. And we have a strategic planning coming up, hopefully in February here. And we're going to be talking about some of those. So we need to know the turning points. You know, when we get to this and we have this information, what goes this way, what goes this way. And I'll take direction from the board when it comes to that high-level decision-making.
Well, I guess the point that we're all trying to make is, if we can move this up, we want it moved up. And if you could spend the bond money, we'd like you to spend the bond money to make Sleepy Hollow what we said we were gonna do 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And I think that's,
It is, and a lot of these questions, Rich, the financial, the budget piece of it, I think, are about the premise that we've been dealing with as a board since the legislative change on the property tax cap, and how that's gonna impact our revenues in like 2 years from now. We know, that we're gonna be about $11 million in the hole, in Polk County, in 2 years from now. So, I mean, we're not gonna be able to be the backstop. We're just, I don't see it. I mean, I don't know if you guys do, see something I don't. And we've all talked to the budget, and our budget manager, so that's kind of our bit, everybody's a little bit edgy about that, where we're gonna be in 2 years from now. So, we're having these discussions right now with all the departments, about how we're gonna move ahead in the future based on revenues, so.
I mean, what I hope is that we're not buying more property and, you know, looking into the future for any of that. I'm hoping that we take care of what we have today, which are trails and projects like Sleepy Hollow, and, now, obviously, you have the 2 rivers on your plate, but those are projects that we have today.
Yep.
So if we have bond money, I hope we spend it. That's what taxpayers said we could do with it.
Yes, I've received the message. Foot on the gas, look at the bonds.
Correct.
Yep, and as far as some of these other, you know, we've got other things going on too. So we're building the parking lot for the Lauritsen Skate Park. We're working with Icon on the Fleur site across from Grays Lake. We got the bike park up north of Pleasant Hill.
I was gonna ask you about that, Rich.
Yep.
So is there some, and it's probably jumping off, but is there some sort of holdup with the city or something on that mountain bike? Well, what's the hold, there's nothing
Nope.
prohibiting?
Contracts are out, or not contracts, but RFPs out on the street. I don't know if we, I'm looking to Cammie or Natalie. Do you know when that's coming in? Okay. Because we have DOT grants that are helping us with that too, so it's going out very soon. So we're anticipating construction. Design is pretty much done on that already, so.
Okay, so there's nothing we
Is that
need
the
to do
mountain
to,
bike thing?
yeah.
Land acquisition, we have hit the brakes. So we were out, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we were knocking on doors. We're not knocking on doors anymore. That's not to say there aren't land acquisition opportunities that come up, obviously Brent and Slough. And, you know, we appreciate the ARPA commitment that y'all have made with that, working with Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. All that funding is coming in, along with some of our bond money. We've worked with Camp Dodge in the Army up by Johnston, where they do a 75-25 cost share on some properties along Beaver Creek, adding that to the Watershed Management Authority's strategy. So there are a few acquisitions, actually north of the road there at Sleepy Hollow. That might be a great acquisition, but for the most part, we have hit the brakes on land acquisitions.
Perfect. All right, any other questions or comments for anybody out there in the audience? All right,
Okay, thanks for your time and
thank
support.
you.